Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is brought to you by the Unger Real Estate Group, powered by eXp Realty, proudly serving Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties. Call 407-790-9957 or visit WeSellOrlando.net. What's up, Night fans? Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. My name is Jeff Sharon, along with Eric Lopez and Brian Murphy, on what turned out to be a busy early June Friday news dump day. We're going to get to a lot of news that went down today in UCF land. But first, let's take care of the essentials. We are at blackandgoldbanneret.com. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret and on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. You can follow me at Jeff_Sharon, Eric at Eric Lopez Elo, Brian at Spokes_Murphy, and tell your friends about our podcast because we're about to do. This is sort of a semi-emergency podcast. All right. First of all, we owe you, our fans, an apology because we're intending to get the show out on Thursday, as we usually do, early Thursday, and one thing kind of led to another, and then Eric was like, "Listen, let's do the show Friday," and I was like, "Why? What's going on?" And he's like, "You'll find out." So, armed with that ominous information, it came down about lunchtime today that Renee Luers-Gillispie, UCF's head softball coach since the re-inception of the program in 2002. There was slow pitch softball at UCF back in the day, but that was way back in the day. But Renee Luers-Gillispie resigned from UCF to take the head coaching job at the University of Iowa. Renee is a Iowa native. She came to UCF from Texas Tech in 2000 to start the program, which fired up in 2002. She built the program up from basically an expansion team in the Atlantic Sun Conference, which had a field down the hill from Jay Bergman Field at the time, now John Uliano Park, to 625 career victories, conference championships in 3 different conferences. I don't know how many coaches have done that in college softball. 7 NCAA appearances, numerous conference honors for her players, All-Americans, and several careers launched, no doubt, including, no doubt, 2 of the guys that you're hearing right now, myself and Eric Lopez, believe it or not. So today's kind of a bittersweet day, Eric. You broke the news earlier today at Fast Pitch News and at blackandgoldbanneret.com. I guess just give us the blow-by-blow. How did it all go down?
Well, I guess I'm the hot seat today, right, Murph? I'm going to be drilled with questions.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna get cross-examined today, buddy. Hope you brought your big boy pants.
First of all, she's the only UCF coach to have won in the ASUN Conference USA and the American. So I can tell you that quickly there. Look, honestly, Iowa just, I think from what I was told from people, and, here's the thing, I'm going to kind of set the record straight. So I work for FastPitchNews.com. Fast Pitch News is a major softball site. Mm-hmm. My bosses all reside in the Big Ten. So they have a lot of connections in the Big Ten. And obviously I know Renee pretty well. I've known her for a long time. So it's an interesting story in that regard because you always get fed a lot of different stuff, and you kind of have to. In softball, in particular, there's always a lot of stuff that's thrown out and all that stuff. Iowa opened their job May 16th, I think it was. And, as they went through the process, I kept getting told by people and our staff at Fast Pitch News kept getting told, Renee's the top target. I'm like, okay. And I'm not surprised by it. Because to be honest about it, it makes a lot of sense. You mentioned, Jeff, she's an Iowa native. She played high school there. She I think it was like 60 miles away from the campus of Iowa. She's 20 community college at Kirkwood. One of her idols is Gail Blevins, the Iowa head coach. So I knew about all those ties, and I certainly, her rumor, she's always been brought up for jobs anytime Iowa or Iowa State is open up in the Midwest because of those reasons.
Iowa it should be noted this past year went 21-32, 6-16 in the Big Ten. Go ahead, carry on. I'm sorry.
They haven't had a winning season since 2013. They haven't made the NCAA tournament since Gail Blevins retired, who's a legend in the sport. So, as this kind of developed, and it really kind of picked up a little bit when I was at Oklahoma City, the rumors and stuff like that. I didn't know that they had official interviews this week, and I did, find out that Renee was definitely one of the people that was a candidate to be interviewed. She was being interviewed this week. And once I heard the candidates that were in the mix with her, I'm like, uh-oh, I think she's the best one. And I'm not saying that because I'm biased towards her. It's because she was clearly the best candidate.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the short list and you're like, she's got the resume.
Correct. And so then now the question is, well, what's the numbers going to, play out? And then once I heard the numbers, it's like, uh-oh. And that's why I kind of told you to kind of wait till Friday. This is the thing. This is a no-brainer for her. She's always loved that Iowa program. She grew up in Iowa, as I mentioned. Gail Blevins is her idol. As I wrote in the story, her high school coach is one of her idols, who is, you could explain this better, Jeff. I compare him, the high school coach, who is a legend in Iowa, to Don Solinger in South Florida. For those that don't know, Don Solinger was a long-time high school football coach, won the state title at Southridge, joined Butch Davis' staff at UM, and is a phenomenal recruiter.
Yeah.
That's basically who Renee coached under or, played for up there. And I would not be surprised if he is part of the Iowa staff when that comes out. So her family's in Iowa. She always visits Iowa and the relatives. Her dad, who you've met, Jeff, is in his early 90s. Thankfully, happy to report, is doing well.
I bet he is now.
But
his daughter's coming home.
Well, but here's the thing. He's in his early 90s. And here's the thing. He was in his early 90s. He moved down to watch her play games. But that meant he was away from his other family. And so there was a bit of a, back and forth, Iowa and Orlando, which, if you're in early 90s, that's probably not something you need to be doing.
Right.
So now everybody's together. And this was just an offer she couldn't refuse. They approached her. She never approached them. She didn't want to leave UCF. There was none of that. This was just an offer that honestly, Jeff, anybody would have been dumb to pass this up. To pass this up. She's going to be the third or the fourth high. The reason I don't know the exact list is because Northwestern is a private school, so they do not release their salaries and stuff like that. It's at least very hard to get it anyway. But my understanding is she'll be top 4 highest paid coach in the Big Ten. And that's, you have family and you have a lot of resources at Iowa that, quite frankly, honestly, she doesn't have at UCF. So she got offered the job Friday morning and she took it. She told, obviously, her players and her coaching staff before that. That's why she resigned. And then she took the Iowa job. And that's history as you know it.
And she was in Iowa today, I think, if I'm not mistaken, right?
She's been at Iowa all week.
Okay.
She interviewed, as I understand it, Tuesday. There was a couple other candidates. It worked out because I think her niece is actually playing up there this week anyway. So she was probably going to be there anyway. So, yeah, she was up there. I'm sure she'll be back and get some things and close things out before she moves up to Iowa City. But I mean, again, she's been going to Iowa a lot with her family. It's a family move. It's the right move. And I'm excited for her. It's a huge story in the sport. This is an Iowa program that used to be it's one of 4 programs in the Big Ten that have made the Women's College World Series and have fallen on hard times. And they basically came to Renee and say, please restore our program and the tradition. And when one of your idols tells you that, in particular, that's hard to say no.
Yeah. This is not the first time that Renee Luers-Gillispie her name has been bandied about in coaching rumors. I mean, you don't stay 18 years at a school like UCF without your name getting and winning as much as she did, without getting your name mentioned for a couple of other jobs. Iowa, like you mentioned, has opened up in the past, as have
8 years ago.
A number of other jobs that probably would have been quite attractive to her at the time. Why now?
Why not? Would be the answer. I think the time is perfect. As I mentioned, Iowa's kind of hit the skids. They're in rock bottom, and this is the time right now. Like, this was her chance. This was the thing. If she didn't take this job, this pretty much meant she's staying at UCF for the rest of her career. Time's ticking. It's not like she's coaching for another 20, 30 years. I think this is going to be her last job, which is Iowa. And I think she's excited of trying to restore the Iowa program and bringing it back to its glory and being back to competing in the Big Ten and being back in postseason and trying to compete and get to Oklahoma City. That's what's missing. Here's the problem. At UCF, as great as it is, the way the sport is right now, you got to go to Gainesville and Tallahassee, even if you make the tournament, no matter what you do. And you saw that, Jeff, up close in 2015. At Iowa, you don't have to do that. You could host regionals at Iowa if you're good. If you win the Big Ten, you're in the mix, you're going to host, because there's a lot of programs in Iowa that can bust there. And that gives her an opportunity to compete and win at that highest level. And I think that the opportunity to restore Gail Blevin's program was, too much to pass up. And having all your family there. Her entire family now will be in Iowa. She doesn't have to have the back and forth of Orlando and Iowa back and forth. And, it was funny. Like, earlier this year, I met her sister for the first time. I've worked there 11 years. I met her sister for the first time, who drove from Iowa to watch UCF in the season opener when they played earlier this year. It was the first time she's seen Renee coach in 7 years.
Wow.
Think about that.
Here's an interesting question that I thought about. So there's another guy in the building at Iowa with ties to UCF in their past. I'm talking about Kirk Speraw. Did Kirk possibly have any sort of go over to somebody and say, hey, you might want to give Renee Gillispie a call?
I'll answer it this way. Kirk and Renee have gone way back, as you know. Mm-hmm. When Renee originally arrived at UCF, it was Kirk that showed her the UCF campus.
Yeah.
They're very close. They're good friends. Let's just say that
both from Iowa, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Both from Iowa, yeah. I would not be surprised if Kirk threw her name into the hat there. Absolutely, would not be surprising. And why not? I mean, here's the thing. Even if I wasn't the UCF, if I hadn't ties to UCF, if I had to write an article on Fast Pitch News, who would be the top candidates for the Iowa job? She would have been at the top of the list.
Right.
I didn't do it, honestly. I didn't do it because of my UCF ties. I didn't want to burn that up, speculation. But this is not a shocking development. It makes a lot of sense. I know this is a subject that's very sensitive to some people. It reminds me a lot of Scott Frost in Nebraska.
It's everything like Scott Frost in Nebraska. It's eerie how close this is to Scott Frost in Nebraska.
Yeah. This does feel like it's a situation where it's like this is the only job she would have left UCF for, and correct. It came open and it happened.
To that point, Eric, are you privy to any discussions that might have been had between Renee and UCF once she made her intentions clear? Did they make any effort to say to try to keep her here at UCF, or do you know any of those discussions?
I do not, Murph, at this time. I mean, this kind of happened quickly. All I know is that she was offered the job Friday, and I think that she took it. I don't know what the conversations were in the middle of all that, to be honest. I was kind of waiting to see when the shoe would drop, if you will, quote unquote. If it would happen. And that was the thing. It was weird because the thing that, and you guys know this as journalists, you're being told a lot of different stuff, but you don't really know if it's true until it happens, right? Like, and that's the risk sometimes we have with our sources. It's kind of like I'll give you the example. The biggest story that was going on in Oklahoma City was Tim Walton and whether he was going to go to Texas. And a lot of people kept getting told, oh, Tim's leaving. He's going to Texas. He's going to go to Texas. They're going to pay him this. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And what happened was he signed a 10-year extension this week with Florida. It turns out that Tim's people used the media, and this is not a surprise, it's typical in sports. They used him so he can get the 10-year deal from Florida. Now, did he have interest in Texas? We'll never know. So you never know what happens until it actually happens. But as far as conversations of her and UCF, I'm not aware of it. I am aware that UCF was aware that she did interview at Iowa this week, so I do know that. But as far as any other conversations, I'm not aware of.
What about her? I'm sorry, Murph. Go ahead.
You would basically say there was no chance that she would stay at UCF.
I honestly don't, Murph. I got to be honest. I don't think that's the thing. I don't think there's anything UCF could have done. That would have said no. That would have prevented her from doing this. I don't, because this is the thing. I don't really believe this. This is more a lot of different things in play here. There's family where she has all her family in Iowa. So unless UCF is willing to move everybody to Orlando, that's a little out there. I just think the appeal of moving the family, all of them to Iowa, being close with everybody, all the coaches that she knows up there, Gail Blevins, the Iowa people, and the resources she's going to have there. She's going to have way more resources at Iowa than she ever had here at UCF. I honestly don't believe there was anything UCF could have done here at the last minute anyway that could have prevented this. Now, if you want to have a conversation of maybe what previous administrations could have done and maybe done some things that could have maybe altered some things, maybe that could be a conversation. But honestly, no, I just think this was the job. I think this was a job that was the one that was going to, I always felt like this job or the Texas job would be something that I would always be concerned about her leaving for. And I think Iowa's obviously the perfect fit. To be honest, and I think Jeff alluded to it, I think we're lucky that she didn't, they didn't approach her 8 years ago. Because the Iowa job opened when Gail Blevins retired in 2010. And I remember there was concern back then about, her name was floated. They decided to go with the assistant coach in Marla Looper, who was an assistant at Texas. It was a big name program. They wanted to go with new blood, and it was a disaster hire. She had no ties to Iowa and everything. And I think what happened was this time around, they said, we need a proven coach who happens to have Iowa ties, who has to keep the Iowa kids in Iowa. That's been their problem. They have not been able to keep their recruits. They've been beaten by Minnesotas and the Nebraskas and the Michigans. So they need somebody to build it back to what it was 10, 15 years ago. And no one knows that better than Renee because she's very close with Gail Blevins and she knows how that staff works.
I got a few questions that I want to follow it up on. How many years did Renee have on her deal at UCF?
I'm not sure about that, but it's not. I'll tell you this: it's not a 7 years.
Yeah. Is that what she's getting at Iowa?
Yes. No, that's what I report.
7 years.
Did you not read my article, Jeff?
Yeah.
Did you not report my
article?
I
mean, I saw 6 somewhere else, and I saw 7, and I was like, I'll trust you. But I was like, 7 years. Wow. I mean, that's
now it could have been. It could have been. They might drop it to 6 with an option. I mean, it depends what they want to do.
Obviously, salaries are not disclosed, so we can't. So we don't know anything about that. So here comes a general question, and I hate asking this because it sounds stupid, but it bears. Obviously, it's the question that as UCF people we want.
Good setup.
Yeah, setup. Well, I'm just being honest with everybody here. What is Renee Luers-Gillispie's legacy at UCF?
I think her legacy is a pioneer. I think it's a legacy of she brought softball to the state. let's first talk about this. When she arrived at UCF, college softball at Florida was an afterthought. I mean, you're talking Florida State with Joanne Graff was competing for, ironically enough, in the Women's College World Series. But other than that, you had Joan Joyce at FAU. They were good teams, but nothing serious. Florida certainly is not what Florida is now. And she helped raise the bar in this state. I wrote about this in Fast Pitch News earlier in the year. She raised the bar for college softball in the state. The competition got higher. A lot of people were skeptical. I remember when she arrived, I was one of them. I said, college women's softball at UCF? Is that really going to work? Like going up against Jay Bergman's and UCF baseball? Get out of here. Well, guess what? She outperformed the UCF baseball program and gained a lot of fans for it and support for it. And meanwhile, she turned them into a top 25 program, brought the best out of Florida because Florida actually, in fact, she beat Florida, Jeff, as you remember, in the 05 regional. They fired their coach.
Right. And
brought in Tim Horton. And as they say, the rest is history in Florida. So I think she's helped raise the bar. I know she's done a lot of things in the community, in the Seminole County area. They've helped build facilities with softball stadiums. I mean, she's significant. She should be in the UCF Hall of Fame whenever that is resumed, whatever. And I personally think that the UCF softball complex should be renamed the Renee Luers-Gillispie Field. It's her field.
I'm glad you say that because I agree with that. I don't know how whoever the next coach maybe will feel about that, but but yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, of course, you guys know me. I feel the same way about naming the soccer field after Michelle Akers, but 18 years. There are some players on her roster who were babies when she came to UCF. So now these players are going to be playing under a new head coach. This is going to be the next big question. Who might be on the short list to be UCF's next softball coach?
Well, I think that's a question that Danny White's going to have to figure out.
Yes, of course.
No, you're
he's probably already figured it out, to be honest with you.
Here's the thing. You're laughing about that, but like I've had people call me today. My phone's been crazy. And I've had coaches from across the sport. Everybody's asked me. And I've had to tell some of them, I'm not the one that's actually making this hire, guys, just so you know. So I appreciate you reaching out, but feel free to reach the appropriate people.
You're going to end up putting Danny White on speed dial.
Who knows, right? Who knows? So here's the thing. I think here's these options. The number one option, and I think this is the belief that I have, is you promote from within. Trina Preeter is the assistant there with Tiffany Jordan. Trina's been a head coach before. She's been at Hampton. She was at Buffalo. Danny White hired her at Buffalo. She's a former SEC All-American player, former NPF player. She just got here in her first year. I think that makes the most sense if you keep the two of them together and you bring in a pitching coach because they've got a great recruiting class coming in, top 30. If you read some of that stuff, great core coming in, and they know what they're into. Like they know what the limitations are at UCF. They know what what they work with. They know the roster. The players know them. And Renee's coaching style is she lets her coaches coach. So it's not that big of a drastic difference for the players. So I think that's the number one option, in my opinion. If he decides to go outside, this is where it gets interesting. This is a very interesting offseason in the sport. The Texas job, as we record this, is open. Someone's going to get paid a lot of money to be the Texas head coach. It's probably going to be a big name. Whoever that is going to leave a marquee job. And so that marquee job is going to open, and that's going to create dominoes. So the interesting thing that UCF's going to have here, a lot of the marquee names in the sport are going to wait to see how the Texas thing plays out and what opens up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be the challenge, is that UCF's going to have a lot of competition, and a lot of schools now are throwing money in softball, Jeff and Murph. They're throwing money in softball. So it's going to also come down to what can UCF afford to spend for the next head coach. So I think those are some things they're going to have to figure out and kind of go from that standpoint. So it's going to be expensive if you go outside. I'll throw you a name or two. I can tell you Ruben Felix. It would be a name that I would have on the list.
He's got UCF ties.
Right? He was at UCF under Renee from 2011 to 2014. He's a great recruiter. He's at Ole Miss as the associate coach there. But he makes good money at Ole Miss, so it's going to take a good money to get him out there. So that would be one of the other candidates I would throw out there. But that's going to be interesting. It's going to be fascinating to me how UCF approaches this, because there's going to be a lot of competition and a lot of money is going to be thrown. A lot of money is now being thrown in this sport. The sport's growing year by year. The numbers are up. There 1.5 million people watch Florida State win the national title. And a lot of schools now are starting to realize, hey, let's invest money in softball. We could actually make this sport a revenue maker. Tim Walton even mentioned that in the World Series when I was at Oklahoma City before the tournament started. And you're seeing that. You're seeing Iowa making an investment. You're seeing Texas of the world making an investment. And here's the challenge that UCF has, and you have written about this, Jeff. These schools have huge TV, the Big Ten network, the SEC network. They're pumping money into these programs.
Yeah, I mean, the money from the TV deal has to go somewhere. I mean, you can only upgrade your football practice facilities so much, and then eventually it does trickle down to the other programs, and we're seeing that in softball.
And by the way, if you watch the SEC network, Big Ten network, what do you think they're airing a lot in the spring?
Oh yeah, they have big programming holes to fill in the spring with lots and lots of softball.
That's just, quite frankly, the challenge that the American Conference and Mike Oresco does not have. They do not have that, and that's a challenge. So that's the challenge that UCF has to fight with. It does not mean they can't get a great coach, and I think they're going to be fine. Here's the good news. Renee has left this program in great shape. They have a great roster that will be a favorite for the American Conference if it stays intact, and they've got a great recruiting class coming in. So with the right coach, I think they'll be fine. But it's going to be a tricky hire because, again, it's not like college football where you could just pick out a coordinator from a Power 5 conference to come to you and give them $1 million. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. A lot of college softball assistants are making really good money right now in softball because the sport's blooming.
How attractive is the UCF job in softball? I mean, we know how attractive it is in football and other places, but how attractive is UCF softball among the softball community?
Oh, it's very attractive. I mean, otherwise my phone wouldn't be blowing up. It's attractive.
But is it attractive because it's a destination, or is it attractive because someone thinks if they can make it big at UCF in 2 or 3 years, they'll be out of here and go somewhere else?
I think it's a combination of both, of all of that, to be honest with you, Jeff. I don't think there's one clear answer on that. I mean, there are coaches that are looking for their first opportunity that look at UCF and say, yeah, I could go there and win and maybe go to a Power 5 job after that. It's no different than football. Then again, there's other coaches that feel, hey, I can coach there and win for a long time. It just varies. Here's the thing that mid-major programs have to worry about in softball, and money is going to be spent in softball now. They're being spent. Administrations now are investing in softball, and I think a lot of coaches are about to get taken care of. So it's not going to be easy to keep a coach like it used to be. It used to be you could just stay at a place for 20 years. That's not the case anymore. So, it's attractive because you can win. You're in a good league. And so they'll be able to attract some names, but there are also some questions that are going to have to be answered. And that's, are you here for the long run? What about the facilities? UCF doesn't have a video scoreboard. They're the only ones in the state of the major programs that don't.
Mm.
They've
been thinking about it for a long time now. Yeah.
So I think those are a lot of questions that'll be asked during these interview process, I'm sure. And they'll do their diligence, and it'll be interesting to see what they come out. It's going to be unique because it'll be the first time UCF's had to search for a softball head coach since 2000.
Yeah. That's you're kind of dusting off some old Rolodexes there on that one. That's the story. By the way, you want to read more on it? Make sure you hit blackandgoldbanneret.com, fastpitchnews.com. But by the way, I don't know if you know this, but timetable for a new hire. You thinking it's going to get done quickly, or are they going to take their time?
Yes, I think it has to be done quickly. We're in recruiting season right now, so you want to get somebody in place, I would say, within the next 2 weeks, because otherwise you're going to lose some commits that you have verbally right now, and that's a big problem. So I would expect that coach to be named the next 1 or 2 weeks through the process. And again, we'll see what they decide to do there. And but I think it's a sad day. Look, for me, it's been a mixed day, obviously. Because here's the thing. I mean, with Coach out right now, out at Iowa, I'm technically now a free agent. So it's done. So it is what it is. So it's been weird for me, but I think they'll get a good coach regardless, and I think the program will be fine moving forward. And I think it'll be interesting to see how they handle the program moving forward, and hopefully they take care of the program. And like Renee wanted them. I mean, she's put them in a really good spot here. She has made this job a great job. And that's a compliment to her. Nobody's talking about the Kennesaw State or the Hofstra job, for example, right now. They're talking about the UCF job.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to take a break. And when we get back.
Not all you got for me, Murph.
Where's Murph? Where'd he go? He's being quiet.
Lost.
Murph, where are you? All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. We're going to go find Murph, and then we're going to talk baseball and the MLB Draft when we return. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Stick around. We'll be right back. The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is brought to you by the Unger Real Estate Group, powered by eXp Realty. Sam Unger and his team proudly serve Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties, specializing in buying, selling, and new construction. Sam is a proud UCF graduate, class of 2006, and he's such a dedicated Knight fan that right now, if you work with him as your realtor, he will donate a portion of his commission to the UCF Football Excellence Fund in your name. So if you're ready to buy a new home or sell your current home, upgrade or downsize, Sam and his team have you covered so you can find the right home at the right price in the right location. So give him a call right now at 407-790-9957. Again, that's 407-790-9957. Or visit on the web at WeSellOrlando.net. Again, that's WeSellOrlando.net. You can also reach them on Facebook at facebook.com/WeSellOrlando. Get in touch with the Unger Real Estate Group today and make finding your dream home a reality.
Hello, Night Nation. I'm Andrew Fegley.
And I'm Trey Strelko. Where are we? This isn't our usual spot.
It looks like we've landed in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those guys.
You know, Nightline has UCF sports covered.
Week in and week out, we bring you interviews with newsmakers and in-depth analysis of UCF sports.
Subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to subscribe to Nightline on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at UCF_Nightline.
Trace, can we go back to the 1148 studios now and start working on our next all-new Nightline?
How do we get out of here? Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now back to you guys in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy with you. UCF_Banneret on Twitter. Also follow us at blackandgoldbanneret.com, facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret for all your UCF news and analysis needs. All right, so we just got done talking about Renee Luers-Gillispie leaving for Iowa from UCF Softball. Interestingly enough, there was a coaching hire today at UCF. Dana Boone has been tabbed to be the new head coach of UCF women's cross country and track and field. Interestingly enough, Coach Boone comes from Texas Tech, where she was the associate head coach. And I say interestingly enough because that's where Renee Luers-Gillispie was before she came to UCF. So when we lose someone who came to UCF from Texas Tech, we gain someone who comes to UCF from Texas Tech. So so Dana Boone will be the new head coach of UCF. She coached. She was a sprinting and relay coach at in Lubbock, it says here, this is according to the release from UCF from Megan Herboth. At Texas Tech, she coached a pair of relay squads to the NCAA championship in both 2017 and 2018. So, and 4x400 relay finished 19th in the country, and the 4x100 finished 24th. So, she's got a number of, and you can check out more on Coach Boone at UCFKnights.com. And hopefully we'll get a hold of Coach Boone before the season starts up, and we'll give her the the speed round, where we ask them any coach we haven't had all kinds of questions about them. So we did that. We did it with a couple coaches, and hopefully we'll get that for Coach Boone and whoever the new softball coach may be. I mean, we don't know yet, but we'll find that out. All right, some news we want to talk about, and we found Murph.
Hey everybody, I'm back.
No, we had a connection problem at like the worst possible time. So that's, but so
I figure I just want to make sure that
time.
I just want to make sure Murph didn't get mad or something, upset as I was breaking down the story here.
No. Listen, I don't think I mean, hey, we're good. The so let's talk a little UCF baseball here. MLB Draft took place, and 6 UCF Knights went in the MLB Draft. 2 on day 2, 4 on day 3. It is the 6th time that UCF has sent at least 5 players to the MLB Draft. 5 pitchers went for UCF. To give you some, just to kind of go through it, in day 2, Thad Ward and J.J. Montgomery were selected. Ward went to the Boston Red Sox with pick number 160. Montgomery went to the Baltimore Orioles with pick number 205. And then the following day, 4 UCF Knights were selected. Bryce Tucker went to the San Francisco Giants in the 14th round. Eric Heppel to the Colorado Rockies in the 27th. Cree Finfrock to the Toronto Blue Jays with the 29th round. And then the final night taken was Rylan Thomas in the 26th round. He was not the final night taken. I'm sorry. That would have been Cree Finfrock in the 28th. There are 30 rounds in the MLB Draft. Rylan went in the 26th round to the Cincinnati Reds. Murph, I turn it over to you. That's 6 key players from UCF, including 5 key pitchers. What are the odds that any of them will return next year?
I think the odds of more than one of them returning is 0. Certainly we can say that Thad and JJ are gone. So is Bryce. He's gone too. I think Rylan Thomas should probably stay in the pros and go. I know people are saying, like, why would he go? He was, a late round draft pick. He could help his stock. Well, there's a few things in that. One is he doesn't have much position value at first base. And as already now going into a college junior, unless he'll be a college junior next year, unless he significantly upgrades his stat line, which included a 1,000 OPS and a 343 batting average and a good amount of power and a decent strikeout to walk ratio, unless he significantly pushes up that stat line next year, he's going to find himself either in the same spot or lower in the draft, because when you go back to college for another year, that's another year in which the pros can't use you. Mm-hmm. And so that's also factored into your draft slot. And look, Rylan had a really good year. I mean, it's amazing the kid did what he did offensively when really the last month and a half of the season, he was in a bad slump. And
yeah, I was going to say, like, that last month, like, how do you think that affected it at all?
I'm sure it did a little bit, because, when he was batting, 400 and 390 and his OPS is like 1,200, like it's amazing. It's great. So it would help a little bit. But I think what hurts him right now is that he has a hit tool. We know he has a hit tool, and he's got some pop, but he doesn't have much position value. He does not have much speed. I don't know how much better his defense is going to get, and those things he can work on in the pros. What I'm saying is if he comes back and puts up 340 next year, he's going to be in the same spot. So what's the point?
Yeah.
He can bet on himself and say, I can come back and I'll be 380. But, like, do you really want to make that bet? Like, that's difficult. Like, it's a really difficult thing to do. So I think if I'm him, I'm just taking what I can get and I'm gone. The only guy I consider to come back would be Cree Finfrock, because you can never have enough pitching. And Cree, for parts of the season, was UCF's best starter, arguably their best pitcher at times. I mean, remember down at USF, he outdueled Shane McClanahan to an extent. McClanahan fell in the draft, but at the time, McClanahan was considered a top 10 prospect. And so Finfrock was very good, and I think he can do better than the 29th round with his sort of fastball off-speed mix. I know he's short. Doesn't have great size. And he's coming off of the labrum surgery, but he looked good after the labrum surgery. He had no ill effects once he got into the swing of things. And again, they will always value pitchers more than position players. So if he can come back and have another good season, I think he would help himself, actually.
I was worried about the injury with him. One other point about Ryland Thomas is, if he does decide to leave, he would be in the Cincinnati Reds system. Their Double-A affiliate is the Daytona Tortugas. So there's, there could be a possibility that, Ryland Thomas may be back in Central Florida sooner rather than later if things work out that way. What about in the rest of the draft? One of the concerns that I think a lot of fans have is high school prospects for UCF getting picked off in the draft and going into pro baseball. Did that happen at all?
Well, I did see that C.J. Alexander, who's coming over from, I believe, junior college, the State College of Florida, Manatee, Sarasota, Florida. C.J. Alexander's the third baseman commit. He got drafted in the 20th round by the Braves. I would consider, he'd probably still come to school. But again, I don't really. It's tough for me to say. That's sort of like in an area where it's like, maybe he can go, maybe he can stay. But I have to find who else, if anybody else got drafted. Not that I know of, as far as commits, were swiped. But I can do more digging into that.
Interestingly enough, C.J. Alexander said 23 hours ago on Twitter, "Can't wait to start my professional career with the Braves."
Well, there you go.
It sounds like he's out of here. He's heading. He's going to. God only knows. Gwinnett.
It's right. And I mean, it can go either way. I'm kind of remembering. Was it Brody Wofford? I think was like an 8th round pick. Like somebody was a pretty high pick, and I believe, was it Brody? As I'm looking here, Brody Wofford was a 14th round pick by the Reds last year, and he decided to come to UCF. So I mean, again, he was another junior college kid, and he decided to come to college at a 4-year. So I mean, it's up to the kid, whatever he wants to do. Brody, may look back on that, and be like, I could have gone in the 14th round because he really had a tough year his first year here.
This is this is the part about, we talk about the NFL draft and the NBA draft all the time. The MLB draft is the one is really tough on these in terms of the players making decisions, right? Because you have to weigh this really tough decision. Do I come back to school, or in one case go to school and try and better myself, or do I just take the money and run? And I don't know, man. This is I can't even fathom having to make that decision. In the other sports, it seems like that decision's made for you. Like, you get drafted, you go, obviously. But baseball is such a different animal. Can you shed some light on just how difficult a decision that is for, a college player or even a high schooler who might be heading to college?
Right, and then we've had things where we have high-end high school guys who get drafted still want to go to college, either because they want to go to college or because they think they can get even higher, they can improve their stock even more with a couple of years in college and come out and be even a better draft pick. I think there was a kid who was going to be a first-round pick this year in the MLB draft coming out of high school, and he decided, I believe, to still go to college at either Louisville or Auburn. Some of these kids just want to go to school. Which is not always a bad idea. It is a difficult situation, especially when you're drafted outside the top 10 rounds. See, if you're in the top 10 rounds, you should go, because then you're open to that bonus pool money, which I think the very least is it's at least 6 figures. It's like 125 is like the lowest slot value for a 10th round pick. So like JJ, the slot value of his selection was like 200,000 or less than 200,000. And I think Thad was up around near 300,000. So if you're in the top 10 rounds, you should go. The decision is if you should come back once you're outside those top 10 rounds. You're not really open to bonus pool money much anymore. And, then it's a decision that each player has to make. And it's really hard for me to sit here and say, like, well, he should really come back or whatever. He should really go. I'm expressing my opinions, but I really wouldn't begrudge these kids either way, because I think at the end, they had to talk it over with their families and decide what's best for them. I think the biggest stink or the biggest controversy is Rylan Thomas with, should he come back? Well, and people saying yes, and I would say no. It's a difficult decision. If he wants to come back, great. I mean, I'm sure this team will take him, because the way this team is looking, they still need a middle of the order bat, and we know he can be that. I just don't see how professionally he could really help his draft stock unless he has not just a better season, but a significantly better season. So, but again, if he decides to come back, good for him, but it is going to be a decision.
A healthy number of players from the American were selected in the draft. The top AAC player taken was Alec Baum, the third baseman from Wichita State. The Phillies took him third overall. He's a good ball player. We saw him in Clearwater. Big kid, 6'5" over at third base. Very good hitter. Shane McClanahan, who you mentioned earlier, the lefty from USF, got picked by the Tampa Bay Rays, interestingly enough, in the first round as well. Some of the other names that heard their names called: Grayson Genista, the first baseman from Wichita; Tim Cate, the lefty pitcher from UConn; Grant Witherspoon of Tulane; Dwayne Williams-Sutton of ECU. From USF, David Villar went to the San Francisco Giants. PJ Poulan with UConn, and Zach Susi, they also went in the 11th and 12th round, respectively. Trey Cumbie, who had another lefty, who had a great year last year with Houston, also went to the Tampa Bay Rays. And just looking at Coco Montes to the Colorado Rockies. You can see all this on theamerican.org. But good year for the American in terms of talent, would you say? I mean, we saw most of these guys at the tournament, and for them to hear their names called in the first, like you're saying, in the first 10 rounds, that's a lot of talent heading out the door for this conference, or at least possibly heading out the door.
Yeah, I mean, well, they should, all of them, if they're their first 10 rounds. Yeah, it's good. I mean, when you have a kid from Wichita State being third overall, which I thought was a little bit of a surprise. Like, I think Alec Baum is definitely he's a top 10 prospect. To say third is quite a lot, but it's sort of like, hey, if the Phillies like him, then why not? Yeah. Like, they're not going to be able to pick him in the second round. By
the way, 5 Wichita State Shockers went in the first 10 rounds.
Yeah, and I think even like, I think right after Trey Cumbie, there was Aaron Fletcher, who also had a tremendous year at Houston. There's a lot of guys. But it's definitely good for the conference. Does it make a dent either way? Probably not. But I'm not gonna sit here and say like, well, the conference is gonna be down next year because of all the talent that left this year. Like that just doesn't happen. So the conference will be fine. It was a nice little feather in its cap to see one of its guys get taken third, but it doesn't really move the needle.
Will UCF be fine losing all those pitchers?
Oh boy, that's gonna be a really tough question to answer as we sort of go through here in the next few months, because bullpen is really important to this coaching staff, and they really relied on their bullpen this year, especially when Joe Sheridan went down, and then you had Chris Williams had a shoulder issue, so they really relied on guys like J.J. Montgomery and Thad Ward and Bryce Tucker, and now all those guys are gone. Eric Heppel's gone too. Cree Finfrock, who started the bullpen, then went to the rotation, might be gone as well. And so you're going into next season just looking at the pitching staff of what they've got returning. You've got Chris Williams, who is very good this year, not overpowering, but he's stellar. And you've got some good bullpen pieces, Garrett Westberg, but you also need guys like Jalen Whitehead to step up, and Jack Sinclair. You could probably see Jordan Spicer moving in the rotation. I'm surprised Jordan Spicer didn't get drafted like in the late 30s somewhere, because Jordan Spicer's a guy that maybe everyone was just assuming that he was going to come back to college anyway, so why waste a pick on him? but he's got the stuff to be a really good pitcher. He had a really, really bad year, and I think there's parts of that Greg Lovelady will admit is mental. How he handles the mental game isn't great right now. But he could slot in the rotation, but considering what he did in his first year, he doesn't give you a lot of confidence to that rotation. So you've got Williams and probably Spicer in the rotation, and then you're not going to have Joe Sheridan at all because he's probably going to be out for all of next year with a labrum tear.
Yeah.
And a rebuilt bullpen that's going to miss guys that gave them a lot of innings, like Thad Ward and J.J. Montgomery were not 1 inning, 2 inning guys. When they were coming out of the bullpen, they're throwing 3 or 4 and 5 innings. Like, those swing guys are really valuable, and they were dominant. And so this pitching staff's going to have a lot of questions coming in next year.
The screamers on the message board are always complaining about how is it that you can have 5 players drafted and go 0-2 in the American Athletic Conference tournament and not make the tournament? Can you please dispel all of that and inject some reason into the conversation?
Very, very simple. Very simple. Baseball is bleeping weird. It's a weird sport where it's open to so many vagaries and it just look at the tournament. Look at the 1 seeds that fell. Florida State was 2 in Q. They were gone. And Florida State is still, like, you can look on paper like they're one of the best teams. They're one of the best teams in baseball. We know this, but they got caught on a bad weekend. Like, it was a bad weekend. This UCF team was flawed. Should they have been better than 0-2 in the conference tournament? Certainly. Like, that's why they were 5th seed. They should have won a game. We know this. But sometimes things just don't break right for you. Like, it's just baseball. It's real random. It's strange, weird, and that's why I love it. But that's what happens. Like, move on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man.
Move on.
See, now you're starting to sound like Lopez, like getting after the fans a little bit.
I like it.
well, it just people don't understand baseball. It like bothers me. Like, look, it's a weird sport. It's like you're trying to hit a small ball with an equally small bat. It's a round bat. It's a round ball. It's traveling 90 miles. It's traveling 100 miles an hour and moving.
Who's the guy that said the challenge of baseball is that you have to hit a round ball with a round bat squarely?
Right, exactly. And by the way, that ball is moving, and you have about 2 to 3 tenths of a second to judge it, to either not swing at it or swing at it, and then you have to judge your swing. And it's just, come on, guys, come on. Baseball is weird.
That's a Ted Williams quote, by the way. I just got to correct myself. The hardest thing to do in baseball is hit a round ball with a round bat squarely. Ted Williams.
Yeah.
So, anyway, carry on, Eric.
Right. No, and I was going to say, there's like 1 million rounds in baseball. So, just because you have X amount of guys drafted doesn't. Like, they usually get about 8 to 10 guys drafted. Stetson, who you covered, Murph, recently, they had a few guys drafted. Everybody has to get drafted. It's not like there's a big gap.
Yeah, Logan Gilbert obviously was a top 20 pick top 15 pick for Stetson. I believe Jack Perkins, another starting pitcher, was a top 15 round pick. Brooks Wilson was a top 10 round pick for Stetson. Like, they had a lot of guys drafted too. Yeah, I guess if you want to look at it the other way, like, how could a team that, that didn't have a player taken in the first 5 rounds of a draft, not win a game in a tournament? Well, kind of easily, because they didn't have a top 5 round talent. But that's a stupid way. But again, I will also clarify, that's a stupid way of looking at it. It's a stupid way. You shouldn't do that because it's stupid. So don't.
Wow, he is fired up.
I think we finally broke Brian the first time this year.
I know. Normally, I'm the guy that loses his mind.
I know. You're the one who I'm like, God, I'm like ready to hit the dump button.
The dump button. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Right, Murph. I want to ask.
That's a dumb way of looking at it, and you're dumb for looking at it that way.
Wow. There you go.
No one is made smarter by your accusations, by your observations. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you, Murph, about the player that played against UCF that has not been brought up, and that's Mr. Kyler Murray, which was a big topic. I was at Oklahoma City covering the Women's College World Series. He was a hot topic for obvious reasons. What was your reaction as he went 9th to Oakland, and kind of give us an idea? Because I was impressed with him. You saw him up close. Your thoughts?
My thoughts were, wow, the A's really like that kid. Because
they're being really nice to him.
we all thought that Kyler's probably had, first round talent, but was it was it? Were the worries of him going to play football going to be too much to push him out of the round? Not only that, he didn't fall out of the top 10. So, they love him. The issue is now, he's going to go play a year for Oklahoma. Like that, this has been agreed to.
A year of football.
Yeah. Yes. Excuse me. He's going to play a year of football for Oklahoma. The A's knowingly drafted him at number 9 with the knowledge that he was going to play football. And they're allowing him to do this. Not only are they allowing him to do this, they've already given him a contract of around $5 million. Now, you might be asking yourself, as I was too, and we were before the show, and I've looked it up. How can a kid who's been drafted by a pro team and is now making $5 million be eligible to play college sports? Well, that's because one NCAA rule allows a player to go professional in one sport while still maintaining eligibility in another. Now, it doesn't allow you to profit off your own likeness, but it does allow you to play pro sports if you still want to play college sports in another area. So Kyler Murray is eligible to play football this fall, and he will. And from all intents and purposes, it sounds like he will play this 1 year, and then after this year is over, he will then start his pro baseball career. But in between now and January, he's going to be taking a lot of contact, which I think is going to make Billy Beane squirm in his seat every Saturday. I mean, how do you? It's an amazing story.
Billy Beane does. If you watch the Moneyball movie, you know that Billy Beane doesn't even watch his own team's games. Could you imagine him? Yeah. He's sure as hell is not going to watch the Oklahoma football games.
And look, this is the A's paying $5 million to a player, which is not something the A's really want to do. Like the A's paying for, and they're paying it to a guy who isn't going to play baseball for a year, and he's not going to be sitting on the couch. He's going to be getting mauled and hit by guys who are 295 and 6'5". Like it's he's not and Kyler he's a solidly built kid, but he's not a very big kid. He's about 5'11" at best. And he's going to open himself up to a lot of hits because he runs a lot. He looks like Johnny Manziel on the field. And so every single time he takes a shot in Big 12 football, it's going to be interesting to see what happens because the A's are taking an amazing amount of risk here, but they seem to be okay with it because they've already given him that money.
Well, the fictional character Peter Brand says that he gets on base. That's why. So anyway, go ahead.
There you go. Well, that's true. He did get on base a lot against UCF when I saw him. Unfortunately. Does he have an agent? Like, who signed the $5? Like, does he sign his own $5 million check? Is there an uncle? Like, that's the other thing. Like,
where does the money go?
Yeah.
Right.
Does it go in a trust? Do they stuff it under his dorm mattress? Like, what do they do?
I don't know the answer of does he have an agent? And now as I fervently Google Kyler Murray agent into Google, this is live podcasting, folks. We're
really putting you on the spot here.
I know, right?
No, it's just a fascinating loophole, isn't it?
It is fascinating. For all the things the NCAA doesn't allow its players to do, it allows them to go pro in a sport.
It's wild. Let me ask you this, because you saw a lot of UCF baseball up close in person this year. And you were at the American Conference Tournament, and you were at the Stetson Regional.
Yes.
Where does Kyler Murray rank? Who's the best college baseball player you saw this year?
Boy, that's a good question. Kyler Murray is the best hitter I saw this year, and we saw quite a few of them. We saw Jonathan India from Florida. Yeah. And Alec Baum from Wichita State. Remember, Wichita State not only did they play in Clearwater, Wichita State came here. They played a series here as well. Although I think I missed a few games in that series. Kyler Murray that weekend against Oklahoma was unbelievable. Like Lovelady admitted after the series, like he's the best player on the field. It doesn't make sense that a guy who pays attention to baseball half of the year is the best player on the field, but it's true. I will say this though, going up to Stetson and watching Logan Gilbert pitch against Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State is a flawed team that swings and misses a lot, and they try to launch the ball a lot, and Logan Gilbert took advantage of that. But watching him pitch in the regional here was pretty phenomenal. And like, if you needed if there was a game which determined or locked up a player's value, that was that start. I believe in 15 starts this year, he has struck out double-digit guys in 10 of 15 starts. He has not allowed more than like 2 earned runs in a start, maybe all season. And then he goes out against Oklahoma State and just does it on that regional stage. I thought he was probably the best. It was probably the best performance I've seen anybody this year. Kyler Murray being the best hitter I saw.
I found this from DallasNews.com. MLB teams are allowed to communicate with prospective draftees throughout the process, but neither the A's nor Murray have commented on any future plans at this time. Another potential wrinkle is that Murray's uncle Calvin works for notoriously effective agent Scott Boras.
Lovely.
It's widely expected that Murray will sign with Boras when the time comes. In baseball, the NCAA allows prospects to align with an agent or advisor to help negotiate pro contracts while maintaining collegiate eligibility.
How did he let? I mean, I'm glad that he's able to do that. But considering the amount of draconian rules that persist over the NCAA,
Like,
how is that a thing? How is this a thing?
how do you? Yeah, I mean, that's the loophole. That's by
What
the way,
a
that's according
loophole.
to. I'm sorry. That's according to Spencer Davis, who covers Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, no, what's fascinating too is he could use this for leverage to get the starting quarterback job at Oklahoma. I mean, it wasn't like it was guaranteed he's the starter, but like if he doesn't get the starting job, he could just leave the program.
It'll be interesting to see how he sort of fits in that locker room. I mean, not to stir anything up, but like it is a wrinkle that Lincoln Riley's gonna have to pay attention to. Boy, we've really gone full Oklahoma now, haven't we? I'm talking about Lincoln Riley.
Oh God,
we always
we've now lost our audience.
we always go on these offshoots. Like remember we went on an offshoot a few weeks ago about like NFL rules, and here's one about Oklahoma Sooners football. Like you have to address it. Like there's a guy in your locker room who's going to be making $5 million. Like he's got a $5 million contract. Lincoln Riley's making $3.5. Their starting quarterback is legitimately making more money than the coach in college football.
Could you imagine how that conversation goes? Hey, listen, Kyler, listen, we're not going to start you. I make more money than you, coach. Yeah, I know. Maybe you should go do that.
Yeah, and so it's another wrinkle that boy, if you are writing for the Oklahoman, you're having a fun time this fall. It's going to be an interesting camp.
Well, like you say, Brian, baseball, it's weird.
It's weird sport, guys.
It's weird. It's weird, guys. All right, let's wrap up with a couple things. Okay, first of all, we delayed the Bannies a week. We're going to have over the next 2 weeks our nomination show, which will be next week. We'll record that, get that out, and then you, dear UCF fan, will have 1 week to vote on the winners. We will do it via Twitter. I will also post an article with all the Twitter polls that are up there, and set them all to close at the same exact time so that you can vote straight down the line. Eric, we'll start with you. What do you have coming up this week?
Well, I got to record a Fast Pitch News podcast. I'm going to have to talk about that Iowa new head coach, so we're going to have to talk about her a little bit. In fact, I wonder, I need a UCF perspective, somebody that maybe was around the program before, at the beginning of the program that knows Renee. Any ideas, Jeff? Anybody want to come on my podcast? You want to come on?
I don't know, man. I mean, Brian, maybe.
I met Renee a few times at baseball games. She seems like a lovely woman.
Oh, that's true.
I'll go on with you. I'll go on. It's no problem.
There we go.
So there you go.
Breaking news, folks. Jeff will be making his debut.
Fast Pitch News. Fast Pitch News. You just had yourself an editorial meeting right there. So
there you go.
Cross branding.
There you go. That's right.
That's why I got a lot of different hats. So. Obviously, I'll be recording that this weekend, and obviously I'll be following not just obviously the UCF head coaching job for obvious reasons, but I'll be following who's going to be the head coach at Texas. And so it's a lot of busy time in the offseason. Glad to be back from Oklahoma City, where I just spent a week in covering women's softball and people talking Oklahoma baseball and Kyler Murray stuff.
Yeah.
But
followed your stuff in Oklahoma City. It was amazing stuff. And, of course, you were happy that you got to watch Florida State win the national championship.
Well, I'm friends with Lonnie and their coaching staff and Travis Wilson, if you want to look at another candidate for the UCF head coaching job. So, that's it was fun.
Now look at this. Now he's just throwing names everywhere. Like, you're like
It's kind of part of my job, in fact. It's like that. Somebody has to. I mean,
Yeah, somebody has to be a part of the college softball Twitterati, as it is.
Something like that. But yeah, no, that was a blast to cover that event up close. Packed house, 8,000 to 10,000 every night. It was a really blast. It shows the growth of the sport, and to go full circle. I mean, that's why Coach Gillispie ended up, part of the reason why she's at Iowa, because Iowa's investing and making a major commitment to softball, and that was something that she couldn't pass up. She would have been crazy to pass it up, to be honest with you. And we're excited for her. We're sad, but we're excited. And again, UCF will be fine. But we'll be monitoring what happens the next couple of weeks with that. And who knows what I'll be doing? What else? Who knows? It's going to be weird.
How about you, Brian? What do you got?
Well, if the listeners remember what I just said about 20 minutes ago about UCF baseball, I'm going to be trying to put that in a written form. A little longer, a little more fleshed out, with not as much vitriol in my voice. So yeah, I'll be doing that because I there's not a whole lot else to do. I'm not usually this angry. I'm usually supposed to be the voice of reason on this podcast. But when people say stupid things about baseball, it grinds my gears.
Look at that.
How many times has said the word
defending the honor of baseball? I love it.
It's a drinking game word now. Eric's got idiot, and I've got stupid apparently.
How's Aaron Boone doing with the Yankees, by the way?
Well, they're up 3-1 in the 8th, and he's doing pretty well.
Maybe the Cavs should hire him. I don't know. I will be starting my first deep dive into some advanced statistics this coming week with UCF football. We're kind of doing a little bit of UCF study hall, if you will, on taking a look at some advanced statistics having to do with possessions and possession results for UCF football heading into 2018. So wish me luck on that. I'm going to have my head buried in some Excel spreadsheets on that. God help me.
You love that, though.
I know. I can't complain. I'm such a nerd for that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
And looking at possessions and looking at box scores and I'm actually getting into like the play-by-plays and stuff. I'm trying to go back to 2013 on everything. So we'll see how that all works out. All right, fellas, thanks again for joining me. I know we were late on it, but obviously we had some, Lopez told us to hold off on because he was embargoing breaking news on us. Whatever. Thanks to you for listening. Thanks to once again our friends at the Unger Real Estate Group for their support. As always, they've been great supporters for us. Sam and the crew. Can't thank them enough for helping us out as they have all year. Fellas, thanks to you as well. So we'll be doing the Banny Awards nominees next week. You guys are both in for that, right?
I guess it's my first time, so I have no idea what's happening.
Well, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. Everyone's gonna have a blast with this. Trust me.
As long as my phone has stopped blowing up by then, I should.
Sounds like a plan to me. All right. For Brian and Eric, I'm Jeff. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Follow us at blackandgoldbanneret.com, UCF_Banneret on Twitter, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week for the Banny Awards nominations.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.